Hey guys, this is Kendra with Signing Agent Basics, hanging out with you guys again live on a Saturday. Thank you guys always for coming to hang out with me to talk about the exciting topics in the notary public and signing agent space. I'm always excited to see you guys. I'm always excited to hang out with you guys. And I always appreciate the fact that y'all come in and kick it with me. So today I am streaming on YouTube as always. That's my main spot. I'm also streaming on Facebook, and hopefully I did it right this time. And I am also streaming live on Instagram. I tried to do it last month, had a little technical difficulties, but I think I have got it figured out for this month. So whichever platform you guys are watching me on, I appreciate seeing you. Thank you for joining me. I usually hang out with y'all for about 45 minutes to an hour, giving you guys information and also answering questions. I remember being a new notary public. I remember being a new signing agent and having questions and not having all of the resources that we have today to get answers. So I really, really hope, guys, that the information that you receive from me and these videos and these live streams is helpful for you and your notary business and your signing agent business. So the topic for this month, we're going to be talking about notary law that signing agents need to know. Now, obviously, this is going to be stuff that's going to be helpful, even if you are a notary public who does general notary work or other type of notarizations. This is basically just going to be kind of general notary law. But again, I'm a signing agent. This is signing agent basics. So you know, I always go specific or more specific for my signing agents. But before we get into that, do me a favor, guys. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. You guys know I go live every single month. You know that I put out other content for you. So if you haven't already hit like. Let me know that you like this kind of stuff. If you're not already following or subscribed to my channels, what are you waiting for? You know you'll be watching. I see you watching. So go ahead, subscribe or follow. And then especially if you are on YouTube, hit that notification bell. So if you don't know that I'm going to go live, when you hit that notification bell, you will get a notification of every video that I drop and every live stream that I do. And I also, guys, every time I love to see where you guys are joining in from, where you are watching from. So do me a favor, whether you're on IG, Facebook, or YouTube, whether you're watching this live or you're watching this on the replay, let me know what city and state you are from. Then also let me know whether or not you are an aspiring signing agent. So you're just checking this thing out. You haven't done any actual loan signings yet. You are an aspiring signing agent. Or let me know if you are a new signing agent. You've been doing this thing for a year or less. Or let me know if you are a veteran signing agent. You're a pro. You've been doing this thing for more than a year. You know what's what. So let me know what city and state you are from. Let me know whether you are an aspiring signing agent, a new signing agent, or a veteran signing agent. Let's see who we got, where we got folks coming in from. We got people watching from Detroit, Michigan. We've got another Michigan person in the house. What's up, Michigan? I know folks from Michigan. That's awesome. We've got Nita from Shirts. We've got folks here from South Carolina, Virginia, Indiana. You guys are always from all over the place. I love it. We got April right down the street from me in San Antonio. Good to see you. We got Debbie here from La Place. I like that name. We've got folks here from Kentucky. We've got Dallas. My Texas people always show up and show out. We got Selena. We got Gloria from Selena, Texas. We've got new signing agents. We've got veteran signing agents. We've got another new signing agent. Guys, again, keep telling me whether you are a new signing agent, an aspiring signing agent, or a veteran signing agent, and let me know what city and state you are from, whether you are watching this live or if you are watching this later on the replay. And then, guys, I need y'all to do me a favor. I need y'all to be like my personal assistants a little bit. Every time I do a live stream, I always have some folks who hop on later. Nothing wrong with that. But then they're always concerned because they're like, oh my gosh, what did I miss? Is there going to be a replay available? So if somebody comes in and they ask that question, do me a favor, let them know, yes, the replay is absolutely going to be available as soon as the live stream is over. Awesome, guys. And then I do want to let you know there is going to be a Q&A session at the end. So do me a favor, please try to hold your questions until the end. I'm a one-woman show over here. So if you ask questions while I'm going through the information, I may not see it. So if you are able, try to hold your questions until the end. If I miss your question during the live stream, I always try to go back and answer any missed questions. And if you are watching this on the replay and you have a question, you can always put it in the comments of the replay. And I always do my best to go back and answer those questions. Also, guys, y'all know I always have goodies and freebies and all kinds of stuff available for you. The links to those items are going to be in the description box of the YouTube video. So if you're watching this on IG or if you're watching this on Facebook, you got to go to YouTube to get to the freebies that I'm going to have for you. And the links are in the description box of the YouTube video. So then I always have people ask me, where the heck is the description box? So if you're watching this on YouTube, underneath the video, underneath the title to the video, you're going to see some words, and then you're going to see the word more. Click on the word more. Now, if you're watching this on your cell phone or mobile device, it's the same thing. Look underneath the video and the title of the video. You're going to see the word more. You're going to click on it. It's going to open the description box up a little bit, and then you got to click the word more again. When you do that, then the full description box is going to open up and you will see the links to things that I have available for you. The first thing that I always have for you guys is my free new signing agent checklist. I always have new and aspiring signing agents ask me, what do I need to do step by step to become a signing agent? Well, this checklist tells you step by step everything that you need to do to become a signing agent. So if you are an aspiring signing agent or a new signing agent, make sure you go to the description box of this video and download that checklist. Another freebie that I have for you is my free AI guide for notaries. ChatGPT, AI, it's all becoming a bigger and bigger part of our world as a whole. And there is a way or ways that we as notaries public and signing agents can use that technology. So I've got that free AI guide for you to help you learn how you can use AI in your business. Woo! All right. Now that I got all that stuff out of the way, we are going to start talking about notary law. And again, this is going to help you out whether you are a signing agent, whether you do general notary work, whatever kind of notarization you do. The basic law is going to be absolutely the same. Now, the first thing I want to remind everybody is that notary law is different in every state. Texas, the state where I'm at, has its own specific notary law. California has its own specific notary law. Florida has its own specific notary law. In every single state, it is going to be different. Just because a notary in one state can do something a particular way does not mean that a notary in another state can do things the same way. So it is very important, guys, that you learn for yourself the specific notary law for your state. The best place to get in notary law information, and this is information that you must know and follow, is going to be either your Secretary of State's office or your Department of State's office. In pretty much every state, it is either the Secretary of State or the Department of State that is over notaries public. That's who gives us our commission. And that's where your notary law can be found. People all, you should always go to the source. You always want to get information straight from the horse's mouth. Well, the horse's mouth is going to be the Secretary of State's office or the Department of State's office. Pretty much every state has a website. On that website is going to be your notary law. You should already have that website, that web page that has your notary law bookmarked. That should be something that you can quickly get a hold of, because that is the law that you must know and follow. And again, guys, this isn't optional. You don't get to kind of follow the law if you feel like it. When you get your commission, again, you are taking an oath. You have a duty. You are telling your state that you are going to learn and follow this law. So before you notarize anything, before you stamp anything, before you do anything as a notary public, you should know your state notary law. And here's the deal, guys. You cannot blame anyone else. You cannot pass the buck to anyone else when it comes to your state notary law. It's your responsibility to know your state notary law. If you're a signing agent, it's not the lender's responsibility. It's not the title company's responsibility. It's not the signing service's responsibility. And even if you just do general notary work, it's not the signer's responsibility. It's not another notary's responsibility. It's not the National Notary Association's responsibility. It's not a notary trainer's responsibility. It's not the responsibility of Facebook groups. Now, some of those places might be a good resource to get information, but you should never count on any of those different items that I listed for your notary law. You should know the law for yourself. And then if you have questions about it, you need to look on your Secretary of State or Department of State's website. Okay. It's very, very important. Why is this important? Well, again, as a notary, our job is to prevent fraud. Each state has determined what steps we need to follow to prevent fraud. And if you do not follow those steps, if you do not follow the law, you can face civil and criminal penalties. Personally, your notary stamp is commissioned under your name personally. So what's a civil charge? Well, civil charges is like if somebody sues you, right? They take you to court and they sue you, and they can win a certain amount of money against you. You could end up having to pay thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending on what damages the judge or the jury feels that your negligence caused. So it can literally cost you money. And I've heard people say, well, look, I ain't got no money. So if they sue me, they ain't gonna win nothing. Okay, that may be true. They may not get that money immediately, but if you own property, they might be able to place a judgment on your property. They may be able to garnish wages, retirement income, all kinds of stuff. So we don't want those problems in our life. Now, you can also face criminal charges. So what are criminal charges? Look, criminal charges mean you going to jail. You're going to jail. You're getting locked up. All right. You don't want to go to jail. I tell people all the time when they ask me to do something that breaks my state's notary law, your document is not worth me going to jail over. I don't like you enough to go to jail over your particular notarization or your particular document, because that is a reality. Notaries who have not followed their state notary law have faced criminal charges. They have gone to jail. Nobody wants that. Okay. And then some people will say, well, I've got errors and omissions insurance. That's what I get insurance for. That's what's going to cover me. Guys, errors and omissions insurance does not protect you from knowingly breaking your state notary law. The things that I'm going to go over are the very basics of your state notary law. You really can't go, well, I didn't know. Like, no, the judge isn't going to go for that. Okay. And again, your errors and omissions insurance covers you for errors or omissions. It does not cover you for knowingly breaking the law. And here's the other reality. Even if you are not guilty, or if you are found not guilty, you may still have court costs. You still had to take time out of your life to fight this thing. Again, ain't nobody got time for that. Nobody wants to deal with that. So again, this is another reason why you want to know and follow your state notary law for yourself. So the seven big things that you need to study and know what your state notary law says before you do a single notarization. These 7 things that I'm going to tell you about, get into your notary law. They should be simple because these things should be pretty well outlined in your notary law. But these 7 things, make sure you know the answer to these things from your state notary law before you notarize a single document. So the first thing, personal appearance. What does that mean? Basically, that means that you and the signer must both be present face to face in the same room when the notarization takes place. Okay. That even extends to online notarization. They may be physically in another location, but you guys are in the same signing room. You're in the same virtual room, face to face, when the notarization takes place. And I know some of y'all are thinking, well, duh, that's common sense. But let me tell you about one of the big ways that I see, people kind of forgetting about personal appearance. You may have one spouse bring a document, and it's already been signed by both people because for acknowledgments, you can have the signature already on the document. And they may be coming to you to have that document to notarize. Well, then you notarize it and you put both spouses' names in your notary certificate, even though one spouse is the only person appearing before you. So you've now notarized a document where both people did not personally appear in front of you. You can't do that because you're basically saying, oh, yeah, I saw this other person when you didn't. So you have to make sure that you have personal appearance from all signers of the document for what you are notarizing. If the person's name is in your notary certificate, that person needs to be standing physically or virtually in front of you for the notarization. And actually, failing to require signers to be present at the notarization is the number one claim of misconduct against notaries. There have been several stories of notaries facing both civil and criminal charges for notarizing documents for someone who did not personally appear in front of them. So, first and foremost, look up your state notary law to see what it says about personal appearance. But I'm pretty sure across pretty much every state, it's going to say that the signer needs to personally appear before you. But what did I also say? Don't take my word for it. Look it up in your state notary law. All right. So then the second thing that you're going to have to do, once that person personally appears in front of you, you need to verify their identity. So again, you need to look in your state notary law to see what is acceptable identification. So pretty much every state will allow you to use some sort of identification card or identification document. Driver's license is something that I see the most used for identity verification. So now in Texas, again, this is Texas notary law. If you in another state, your state may say something else. In Texas, their identification card or identification document must be valid. It must be current. It must be government issued, state or federal government issued. And it must include the signer's photo and signature. For us to use an ID card or a form of ID in the state of Texas, it must meet all of those requirements. Not most of those requirements, not some of those requirements, not one or two of those requirements, but it must meet all of those requirements. So again, the thing that I see the most is a driver's license, right? That almost always covers all of those items. But I, as the notary, need to look and make sure that driver's license is not expired, right? I need to make sure that it has a photo and a signature. I need to, look at it and give my best. I'm not gonna say best guess, but I need to look into the best of my knowledge, feel that this is an authentic, not a faked ID, right? I need to look at all of those things to make sure that it meets all of those requirements. Now, in Texas, we can use a foreign passport only for a deed or another instrument on a residential real estate transaction. So I have often used foreign passports as a signing agent because I'm doing a signing for a residential real property transaction. But if that same person came to me for a general notarization, if they just had some random document that did not have anything to do with residential real property, I would not be able to accept that foreign passport. So that's one of the things I see people fall into all the time. They think, oh, because I can take a foreign passport over here, I can take a foreign passport anytime. No, you can't. It's only under certain situations. So to give some examples of IDs that would not be acceptable, one of the ones that frustrates a lot of people is the new military IDs that don't have a signature. Yes, they're government issued. Yes, it's current. Yes, there's a photo, but there's no signature on it. Okay. So another form of ID that is not acceptable is a social security card. It ain't got no picture on it. So I cannot use that. So regardless of what anyone else says, I can't use those for identification because they do not meet the minimum requirements for my state notary law. Now, another notary in another state may be able to use those as ID depending on what their notary law says. So this is why you need to find out what your notary law says about ID cards and ID documents. Another way that you can verify someone's identity is through personal knowledge, and that is familiarity with an individual resulting from interactions with that person over a sufficient period of time to eliminate any reasonable doubt the person has the identity claim. A friend, somebody you've known for a long time. And here in Texas, our law does not specify how long the notary has to be acquainted with an individual. Now, I'm gonna tell you, I have never done a notarization off of personal knowledge. Even somebody that I have known for years, I make them give me their ID card. That's just how I roll. But again, what does your state say about personal knowledge? If you can use it following your state notary law, then absolutely go for it. Another way that you can verify identity is through credible witnesses. A credible witness is a person who knows the signer well enough to swear or affirm that the signer has the identity he or she claims to have. Again, learn and follow your state notary law on when and how a credible witness can be used. Here in Texas, a credible witness must be personally known to the notary, and the notary must administer an oath. In some states, it may tell you that you can't use a credible witness just because the person forgot their other ID. Like if they have other ID that they could use, you can't just use a credible witness because it's convenient, right? Again, you need to see what your state notary law says about all of these particulars when it comes to using a credible witness. Another thing that falls under verifying identity is name discrepancies. So the name on the ID needs to reasonably match the name on the document and the name in the notary certificate. So things like nicknames, middle initial, junior or senior. So if their ID says Christopher James Smith and the documents say Christopher J. Smith, okay, I can reasonably assume that that is the same person. Now if the documents just say, well, if their ID says Chris Smith and the documents say Christopher James Smith, well, there's a little bit of a wiggle room as to whether or not this is the same person or not, because the discrepancy between the name on the ID and the name on the documents is kind of big. You know what I'm saying? So you might need to ask them for another form of ID. So think about things like that. Again, junior or senior. If the documents have junior or senior on their name and their ID doesn't have junior or senior, how do you know that you're meeting with the right person, junior or senior, right? So again, you may need to get some additional identification from that person so that you can handle that name discrepancy. Another big thing that I see is women normally, but people getting married. And people don't seem to realize that just because you get married, your name does not automatically change. Your name is not legally changed just because you get married. So if Susie Jones marries John Smith, she does not automatically become Susie Smith. And this is something that I see a lot. People will get married and they'll go to buy a house, and the loan officer just automatically assumes both of their last names are the same because they're married. And then they get to closing and the documents have her as Susie Smith, but she only has ID that says Susie Jones. I can't I can't notarize her as Susie Smith because technically she's not Susie Smith. She is technically Susie Jones. All of her ID says Susie Jones. And then some people will say, well, what if I show you my marriage certificate? If you show me your marriage certificate, I'm going to say, congratulations. I'm super happy for you that you got married. But again, a marriage certificate does not legally change your name. And in the state of Texas, a marriage certificate is not sufficient ID for notarization. So these are times when the name discrepancy is too large that you have got to say no. Because again, if something happens and this document is disputed or there's a problem on this document and it comes back, you personally can face civil or criminal charges for notarizing these documents without verifying their identity properly. So again, something I want to point out specifically for my signing agents, because this is something that I run into all the time. We have a lot of pressure as signing agents. You know, this real estate transaction is down at the end. Everybody wants this thing to close today. And this has happened to me more times than I can count. We get to the table, the name on the documents and the name on the ID, it's too big a discrepancy. And I will hear sometimes they'll say, well, the lender is okay with this ID. Happy for the lender. But here's the thing. Just because ID meets the lender's requirements does not mean that it meets your state notary law requirement, okay? Just because the lender or the title company or the signing service or whoever says an ID is acceptable does not make it acceptable, okay? You cannot go into court. Again, if you get drawn into court, which happens, if you get drawn into court, and the judge is like, okay, the name that was on this ID and the name that's on these documents don't match. Why did you notarize this document? You're not going to get off the hook by saying, well, the lender said it was okay, or the signing service said it was okay. Title said it was okay. The judge is going to chuckle at you. And then you're going to have problems. Again, you don't want those problems, okay? Because the lender, the title company, the signing service does not supersede your state's notary law. Another thing that I hear a lot from title companies and lenders is, well, we have an AKA statement in the documents that says that they are also known by all of these other names. Again, unless your state notary law says otherwise, that AKA statement is not sufficient ID. It cannot be used in place of acceptable ID. So I always tell people to think about it this way, because again, we're kind of programmed to want to do what the people who have hired us have told us to do. Think about it this way. If you're running late for a signing and the lender or the title company says, hey, you need to get there on time. I don't care. Drive 100 miles an hour to get to that signing on time. Do what you got to do. I'm authorizing you to drive 100 miles an hour to get to that signing. If you get pulled over by the police, they're going to give you a ticket. You might even go to jail, depending on how many miles over your state's speed limit you are going. And when they're writing you that ticket or when they're arresting you for speeding, you can't say, well, the lender said it was okay. The title company said it was okay. The signing service said it was okay. That police officer is going to laugh at you while they're writing that ticket or while they're snapping those handcuffs on, because the lender, the title company, and the signing service do not have the authority to tell you to break the law. So hopefully that makes sense. All right, let's see what else we got, because I think we only made it through 2 things, and I got like 7 on this list. So let's see what else we got. Confirm willingness. All right, so we need to make sure that the person who is signing these documents is doing so willingly. And people will say, well, how do you do that? Well, the easiest thing to do is ask them. Ask them, hey, are you signing these documents of your own free will? And see what they say. If they say no, then guess what? Stop the signing. There's no other conversation to be had. They're telling you they're not signing willingly. You can also look at their body language and their demeanor. We've all seen those movies, and we may even know people who have been in situations where they're feeling pressured or coerced by someone else. You can tell they don't feel comfortable. They don't really want to do it. So in that instance, you may even need to take that person away from the other person and ask them privately, hey, are you signing this willingly? You know, guys, we got to use our senses. We got to use our common sense as well. And we need to also make sure that the signer is generally aware of what is taking place. Now, they don't need to know all the intricate details and the math and all of that good stuff, but they need to know, like, if this is a real estate transaction to purchase or sell a home, they need to understand that they are purchasing a home or selling a home. Okay. So one of the things that I see this a lot with is maybe the elderly. Okay. They may be older and, you know, their family is pressuring them or pushing them. Go, grandma, go ahead. Just sign right here, grandma. Just sign right here. So you need to ask grandma, hey, grandma, here in San Antonio, abuela, abuelita, or, you know, make sure that she knows what she's signing or he's signing. This is also important when people are under medication. Okay. Like if somebody's under pain medication or some other sort of medication, Benadryl makes me loopy. I'll sign anything under Benadryl. I don't know what's going on. So if somebody is under medication, if you're meeting people at a hospital, find out if they're on medication or not. You may even need to ask the doctor, hey, they're on this medication. Are they aware enough to be able to sign documents willingly? Again, guys, do not be in a rush to make people happy. You need to first make sure that you are following the law. And one of the things that you need to do is to confirm a signer's willingness. Another thing that falls under that is direct communication. Guys, direct communication between the notary and document signer in English or another language is a best practice, and it may even be required by your state notary law. So what does that mean? You and the signer, best practice, should be able to speak the same language. I don't speak Spanish. I live in San Antonio, Texas, where there are a lot of Spanish speakers and a lot of Spanish speaking signers. So if a signing comes up, I will always make sure, I will always ask, do they speak English? No, they speak Spanish? Okay, well then I'm going to refuse this signing, and a Spanish speaking notary needs to be obtained for this signing. So that way they can directly communicate with one another. And you may say, well, why is that important? Why can't you just use an interpreter? Again, it all goes to willingness. How can I ask the question, are you signing this willingly, if they don't speak the same language as me? I don't know what that interpreter is telling them because I don't speak that language. I don't know what the interpreter is telling me from that person because I don't speak the language. If that person is being coerced, I may say, ask them this, when the interpreter is then really saying, you've got to do what I say or else I'm going to hurt you. Okay, I have no way of knowing that because I don't speak that particular language. So best practice is that you and the signer should speak the same language. And again, check your notary law. It may even be a requirement. I personally don't do signings where I cannot directly communicate with the signers. Now, something that does pop up, people will be like, well, what about deaf signers? I love y'all. If they can read and write in English and I can read and write in English, then we can directly communicate with one another. It doesn't necessarily be the same spoken communication, but if we can read and write the same language, then we can communicate in a written format. Okay. But if that person only reads and writes in Spanish, I can't help them out because your girl cannot read or write in Spanish. Awesome. So hopefully that makes sense for you guys. So the next thing you're going to want to do, you need to complete your notary journal entry. Now, you need to look in your state notary law to find out, first of all, do you even have to keep a journal? There are some states where a journal is not required. However, I will say, even if you're not required to keep a journal, it is a good best practice to still keep your notary journal. Here's the thing, guys. People complain about having to keep a journal, but your notary journal protects you. Your notary journal is the thing that you can go back to prove that you did everything to the best of your ability to meet your state's notary law. I've been doing notarization since 2007. If you ask me about a notarization that I did in 2007, I am not going to remember the details of that signing, but I can go back to my notary journal from 2007 and I can pull up the details that I wrote down in my journal. So it is a best practice, even if your state does not require it, for you to keep a notary journal. So the things that you need to figure out in your state notary law is what items are required to be in your journal. Your state is going to say you have to put X, Y, and Z in your journal. And then you also need to see what items are prohibited from being in your journal. Your state notary law is going to say you cannot put the following things in your notary journal. So a couple of big things that I see all the time is, does the journal have to be signed? It depends on your state notary law. In some states, you have to collect a signature. In other states, you do not have to collect a signature. In some states, it may be totally prohibited from you collecting a signature. It totally depends on your state. Another one is, can you get a fingerprint? Again, it depends on your state. It's required in some states, it's a good practice in other states, and it is prohibited in other states. Another big thing that I see from signing agents all the time, do you have to do a separate line for each document in a loan package? Again, what are the requirements that your state notary law has? So again, before you complete a single solitary notarization, you should already know what your state notary law says about each of those items. So to give you some examples from Texas notary law, again, this is only in Texas. In Texas, we are required to keep a journal, but signers do not have to sign our journal, but you can get a signature. We are not prohibited from getting signatures. But if I ask someone to sign my notary journal and they say, no, I don't want to sign your notary journal, I cannot refuse the notarization because they are not required by law to sign my notary book. Another time when this information was good to know is when COVID first hit and everybody was just really, touchy about everybody touching things. I kept a journal, but I did not have people sign it because I didn't want all those hands on my notary book. And they didn't want to touch something that a bunch of other people had been touching. And that was perfectly fine because a signature is not required in my notary journal as a Texas notary. Another thing about Texas, we cannot write down ID numbers. So when I put down the type of ID that I saw to identify the person, I can put Texas driver's license, I can put USA passport, I can put Florida ID card, but I cannot put the ID number. That is prohibited. I am not allowed to put that in my notary book. Also, I cannot collect biometric identifiers, including a fingerprint. So in some states, you have to get a fingerprint. In Texas, you don't get a fingerprint, okay? Now, another thing people need to be aware of is even if your journal has a space for these different items, that does not mean that you get those items. Again, this is where you need to know what your state notary law says. The journal that I use, it has a space for thumbprints. I just put NA in that space because it would be breaking my state notary law to get a thumbprint. So guys, do not go off of the spaces that are in the notary journal that you purchase. That does not mean that it is legal in your state. Again, as always, you need to know your state notary law for yourself. So then, once you've gone through those other steps, the next step is you might need to administer an oath. And the three most common times when you are going to administer an oath is if the notary certificate is a jurat, which means that the person is swearing to the truthfulness of the information in the document. You will have to do an oath for credible witnesses. We talked about credible witnesses, and you have to do an oath also for subscribing witnesses. I'm not going to go in depth about subscribing witnesses in this training, but those are the times that you most commonly will need to administer an oath. So what's an oath? Think about court. All right. It's a ceremony and gestures. And usually you tell the person to raise their right hand and you give them an oath that they have to say, I do solemnly swear that this information, blah, 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 blah. Again, what should you say in the oath? What should they say back? That is going to be in your state notary law. Your state most likely is going to give you sample oaths. They're going to give you an outline for what needs to be said in that oath. And then the person needs to answer affirmatively. They can say, I do. They can say yes. Just a nod, that's not enough. A grunt, that's not enough. They need to verbally answer affirmatively, I do or yes. And so this is another time where I hear people say, well, I've bought homes before. I've had documents notarized before. Nobody has ever had me do an oath. Again, just because other people are not following their state notary law does not make it okay for you to not follow your state notary law. Again, if you get called into court and the judge asks you, did you administer an oath? You're not going to be able to say, well, I never had to admit, the times that I did it before, the title company never made me do an oath. The judge is not going to care. The judge is going to say, it is your responsibility to know and follow your state notary law. All right. So then once you filled out your journal, you've administered an oath if you need to, the next thing you're going to do is you're going to either witness or acknowledge the person's signature. So again, in an acknowledgement, it is possible for the person to pre-sign the document, but the signer still has to be present before you, and they need to acknowledge that this is their signature. They need to say, yep, that is my signature right there. A jurat must be signed in the presence of the notary. So then, how the heck do they sign their name? Well, you need to follow any requirements for your state for signatures. And you have to also realize, especially if you're a signing agent, that the signature requirement for your state and the signature requirement that the lender may have for their documents may be two different things. Here in Texas, there really isn't anything specific that we're told about their signature. So it doesn't say that they have to sign their full name or that it has to be legible or that it has to be in cursive. It really does not say. But if you are a signing agent and you get an assignment, the lender may have a particular requirement for the way they want the person to sign. Most often, they want the person to sign their name the way the name is listed on the documents. Now, that is not a state requirement, but that is a requirement for the lender. So again, you need to know the difference between what your state requires and what a lender may require on their documents. Regardless, you need to always make sure that you are following your state requirements for signatures for any documents that require notarization. So then once they've signed the documents, then you get to complete your notary certificate. So one thing to be aware of, especially for general notary work, you as the notary cannot select the type of notary act or certificate that is required. Most often, the signer will have a choice between a jurat or an acknowledgement. Those are the two notary certificates that you will use the most, a jurat or an acknowledgement. What you need to do is explain to them what the difference is between those certificates, and then let them select the type of certificate they want, or they may even want both. As a signing agent, the type of certificate that is desired is generally already printed or provided in the document. There's never a time where you, as the notary, get to pick what type of certificate is required. And then you do not want to pre sign or pre stamp your certificate in general. And I want to say across pretty much every state, but again, check your state notary law. The signer needs to witness you signing and stamping that notary certificate. So do not pre-fill it, do not pre-sign it, and do not pre-stamp it. And then also, only the names of the signers that are personally appearing before you should be in the certificate. You are only notarizing the signature of the person who is standing before you. So if for some reason there's a second person's name in there, like, if you're meeting with one party out of two and another notary is going to meet with the other party, make sure that that second party's name is not in your notary certificate. If their name is in your notary certificate, you are saying that they did appear before you. And we don't want to lie. We don't want to break the law. We don't want to go to jail. We don't want to get sued. So double check your notary certificate and make sure that the only names that are in that certificate are the names of people who personally appeared before you. So in that notary certificate, in general, the things that you are going to need to fill out are the venue, which is usually the state and the county where the notarization is taking place. You got the body of the certificate, and that is usually going to include, again, the names of the signers, the date, the acknowledgement wording, the jurat wording, etc. You're going to sign it, and you are going to stamp it if your state uses notary stamps. And again, those certificates must meet your state notary law requirements. So Texas is pretty, open where their notary certificates are concerned, but like other states like California have very specific requirements for their notary certificates. So you need to make sure it is your responsibility. Again, not the lender, not the title company, not the signing service. It is your responsibility to make sure that the notary certificate meets your state's notary law requirements. Sample certificates can be found on your Secretary of State or Department of State website. And if corrections need to be made to a certificate to make it compliant for your state, follow your state's instructions on how to make corrections. And even whether or not you can make corrections, your state notary law is going to give you the details. So guys, if you need more information on how to complete a notary certificate, I did a whole separate training on that last year in the video that you see up on the screen under the basics of completing a notarization. I've got a link to that video down in the description box of the YouTube video. Check it out if you want or need more information on how to complete a notary certificate. And again, guys, this is serious. Don't play with this. Don't fool with this, because you can absolutely face civil and criminal penalties for not following your state's notary law. And I don't want none of y'all to go to jail. I don't want none of y'all to get sued. Again, ain't nobody got time for that. That's no fun. And of course, guys, I go even more in depth and provide more assistance and training to my students in my Signing Agent Advanced training program. I always tell people, guys, you need to get training to be a successful signing agent. In my Signing Agent Advanced training program, I tell you step by step everything that you need to know to be an exceptional signing agent and to not get sued and to not go to jail. Because again, we don't want that in our lives. So look, guys, we are at the Q&A session. Hopefully all of that information that I just gave you helped you out a lot. But if you do have any particular or specific questions about any of the things that I just went over, go ahead, type that in the chat. I'm going to try peeking over to Instagram, seeing if there's any questions over there. Let me know, guys, if you're watching this on Facebook or if you're watching this on YouTube, or even if you are watching this under the replay. Let me know if you have any questions. And I know, guys, I know that this stuff is not exciting. I know this is not fun. I know we don't like looking stuff up. I know this. I know this. But this is what we need to do to be good signing agents. This is what we need to do to be a good notaries public. This is what we need to do to protect the public against fraud. Because again, it's not even just all about us. This is also about the public. There can be a lot of real estate fraud that happens because a notary does not follow their state notary law. There have been notaries, again, who have faced criminal charges because they notarized deeds for people who did not personally appear before them. And then those fraudulent deeds were basically used to steal people's homes and land out from under them. And then those people obviously had to go through a ton of trouble to try to get their property back. So again, this isn't just about us. It's also about the public because we are officers of the state where we are commissioned and we need to do everything in our power to follow the law to make sure that we are protecting the public. Okay, so let's see. April has a question. If a notary signs differently from the way their name appears on the stamp, is that notarization valid? So again, what am I going to tell you? Look and see what your state notary law says. In general, you need to sign your name the way it is on your notary stamp. That's not necessarily saying it has to be legible, but you need to sign it the way it is on your notary stamp. And also, especially if it's legible, especially if it's legible, if they have your full middle name, then you need to sign with your full middle name. And one of the things that I always tell people, if you're looking to become a notary public, get your commission the way you sign your name. I always sign with my middle initial. So from my very first commission, I've had my name with my middle initial on my notary stamp. All right, let's see. Maribel wants to know, have I ever experienced where an elderly person has an expired ID from a long time ago and needs to do a power of attorney? Yep, I sure have. And guess what? Did not do that notarization using that expired ID because my state notary law says that their ID has to be current. So they need to do something else to get me acceptable ID. I can possibly use credible witnesses as ID, or they can go and get an updated ID. You know, it's unfortunate, but here's the reality. It's not our job to just do it anyway or to make it work. It is the signer's responsibility to provide acceptable ID. And one thing that I always try to do, whether it's a loan signing appointment or a general notary work appointment, I always try to talk to the signers ahead of time to make sure that they have ID that I can accept before I go out there, because I don't want to waste a trip. And I don't want their feelings to be hurt when I get there and I tell them I cannot use that ID. So especially if I'm doing a signing for an elderly person or for maybe a person who's been in the hospital or hospice for a while, I always double check because that's a thing that happens. They get older. They don't necessarily need their ID card all the time. And so it does expire. So what I do, how I handle it is I follow my state notary law. And if they do not have acceptable ID, then unfortunately, I have to decline the signing. Let's see, Maribel. And then she said, no credible witnesses available. Well, unfortunately, if there's no credible witnesses available and they do not have an acceptable ID card, Texas does not allow me another way to notarize that document. So, that's something I just have to tell them I cannot do. And they may need to, get with an attorney or find some other way to get their power of attorney done. But again, guys, it's not our responsibility to make it work. Sometimes we do have sad situations where people, don't have the proper ID. And here's the thing, and they will give you a sad story. It may be a real sad story, but they will give you a sad story. No matter how sad that story is, guys, you cannot break your state notary law. Because again, if something comes back, you can personally get sued or go to jail over not following your state notary law for that notarization. Let's see. April says, my commission for Texas was signed with the name of the notary had had a full first, middle, and last name on the stamp. She signed only with her first initial and last name. Again, she should not do that. Again, a lot of notaries do not know and follow their state notary law. And I'm going to say, unfortunately, here in Texas, that happens a lot because we do not have to take a test. We do not have to go to a class. You literally just fill out a form. You're not a felon and you become a notary. And you are told as a Texas notary that it is your responsibility to learn and follow the law. But the reality is, most notaries in Texas do not. They get their stamp and they just start signing and stamping everything, not following the law. And then that causes more problems because when you meet up with a notary like myself, who knows and follows the law, when I refuse a signing because it doesn't follow the law, people get upset. They're like, well, this other notary did it. Why can't you do it? And I'm like, well, that other notary broke the law. I'm not willing to break the law. Feel free to go back to that other notary who broke the law. And this is one of these areas, guys, you are going to get pressured. I get pressured all of the time when I refuse notarizations because people will say all of the time, another notary did it. I saw another notary do this. Another notary didn't do this. Another notary took this. I don't care what they took. I read and follow my state notary law. And again, nobody's transaction is important enough to me. Nobody is important enough to me for me to risk getting sued or going to jail for their notarization. So this is where you as a notary have to stick by your guns and say, I'm not going to break the law. And I know a lot of times it's tough because like I said, you'll hear where other notaries have done it. And then the other thing is we don't get instant whammies. Like if you do something wrong, there's no big notary checker in the sky that's double checking every notary certificate that you do or every notarization that you do. So you can do the wrong thing wrong for a long time over and over again, and you may never get caught doing it wrong. But what could happen is a transaction pops up where there's a dispute. You've done something wrong and you are now the weakest link. I promise you, if it's a big real estate transaction or a power of attorney issue, or pretty much every document that has to be notarized is an important issue. If it goes to court, those attorneys, one of the first things they're going to do is look to invalidate the notarization. They're going to look to see what you did wrong. And then you personally are going to face those charges. Because again, remember what I said, you can't say the lender said, the title company said, the NNA said, this other notary did it that way. None of that is going to be an excuse, guys. And what you do not want, I promise you, you do not want to have one of your notarizations that you did incorrectly involved in some kind of a court case like that. Because again, if it ended up causing thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars in losses, you could be personally responsible for paying back those losses. If it caused some type of theft or other deception, you could go to jail for it. So please, I sincerely encourage you guys to take this seriously. Before you complete a single solitary notarization, please make sure that you know the answers in your state notary law for each and every one of the things that I went over. I'm going to scroll up real quick, see if I missed any questions, but I think I've got them all, guys. Again, if you are watching this on the replay or if you think of a question later on, add it to the comments. Add it to the comments on the YouTube video, and I will make sure that I go back and try to answer each and every one of those questions. There's another question here that Gloria asked. Why would seal be by a borrower's name? Seal can sometimes be used as a way of just saying signature. So you'll see that sometime on signature lines. It'll have the signature line and then it'll say seal. That's just another word for signature. That's the best way to explain it. Awesome, guys. All right. Well, thank you guys for hanging out with me. You guys know I will be back next month with another topic for you. Feel free to leave down in the comments one of the topics that you would like to see me cover in the future. But again, guys, thanks so much for hanging out with me. Thanks for joining me on this YouTube Live. Thanks for taking time out of your Saturday. And I hope that you guys have a productive and profitable day.